So you like lifting a barbell? I can relate, I do too. Even when I have access to a bunch of other things, I always gravitate back to the barbell because it is the first thing I fell in love with. It's economical, it's accessible, there's so much bang for the buck. And it gets to the point when you make a good barbell exercise work for you, it's hard to even focus on the other stuff. Now, I'm not telling you to give up your cables, your dumbbells, your body weight exercises, but if you are looking for really good clutch barbell exercises to solve problems in your training, I've got the list for you. We already did this for hypertrophy, my 7 favorite exercises for your entire body. You're stranded on a desert island. What's gonna get you just jacked to the tits? This is 7 barbell exercises for pure power. You home gym warriors, you guys that just have a barbell plates and 10 square feet of open space, this is for you. These movements are going to help you increase athleticism, jump higher, run faster, basically be more effective at anything that requires the use of power. I'm not going to tell you that these are all guaranteed to make your main lifts go up, but as a strongman, I have had to very often break out of just focusing on strength and increasing my 1 rep max because so many events required that amount of athleticism that I had to find ways to develop explosiveness. If I wanted to carry a yoke or a sandbag faster, if I wanted to start my yank on a deadlift more explosively, if I wanted to throw a bag farther, I had to incorporate these movements, and these are 7 of the best. And guys, hit the link below if you want a free PDF. I got this listed on a sheet. I got this up with a whole bunch of other freebies. This is going to give you the exercises, a couple variations I like, when I like to use them, and it's going to give you a good, easy set and rep protocol if you want to start wedging these into your workouts. Starting out, number 1, this is an upper body movement. We're going with a push press. Now, why you would incorporate a power movement for the upper body depends entirely on you and your goals. I had to do it because things like jerks and push presses are par for the course in strongman. But if you're an athlete, anything that helps you transfer force from the ground through your legs and hips and spine all the way to your upper body is absolutely money. Throwing a punch, throwing a shot put, if you're a lineman and you're squared up with an opponent, I don't know, you sumo wrestle on the weekends. There are a lot of movements that will make you stronger in that action, but this is the only movement that actually allows you to do that, to transfer power from your legs through your arm as you extend it forward. I, like many strongmen, started with a jerk when my upper body wasn't that strong, and I quickly realized that a push press was a better option because it was more manageable in competition. But in getting my push press really, really good, one of the things I found was that there was a gear I eventually developed where if I got a good enough pop from my legs, my arm just popped all the way to lockout. It became more explosive. It became faster. My shoulders absolutely grew as a result, but that was a level of explosiveness that I never could have gotten with just regular barbell movements or with like plyometric type movements. This is the sweet spot of enough weight to slow you down, but you have enough power to actually be fast and explosive. You can't get this quality doing anything else. Now, when you get really good at this, it also has some neat side effects. It overloads the absolute shit out of your upper back, out of your midsection, when you're doing reps, like I have to do in contests, when you're fatigued, when you're chasing heavier weights, it absolutely tests your ability to maintain position. So there's more total body benefits from dealing with that load. It requires a really heavy pop from your knees and hips to be able to get the weight going upwards, and the coordination is really important as well. So of course, there are a lot of things you could potentially rig up to simulate an explosive punch type movement, but few are going to be as easy, as accessible, and productive as a push press. Now, of those things that will help your explosive pressing ability are pin presses. Now, this is going to be a little bit different because the push press starts with momentum and allows you to use a lot of weight in a very explosive manner. This actually starts you from a dead stop. So this conditions rate of force development. To be strong, you need to recruit a lot of motor units at once. Rate of force development means you're recruiting them all in a very short period of time. Now, I have beat the drum on pin presses for a long time for anybody who wants to get their bench press up. But also, if you're an athlete, an explosive athlete, you really need to be concerned with rate of force development. It's not just how much you bench press, it's how quickly you get that sucker moving. So setting the pins low right off your chest, starting from a dead stop, and practicing driving as hard as you can. It teaches you to be stable. It teaches you to have good benching mechanics. That's all well and good. More importantly than that, it teaches you to be nasty and violent at the start. And that's physicality that run-of-the-mill benching isn't going to do quite as directly. Again, it all depends on goals, but if there is any athletic endeavor you engage in that requires a very fast, explosive start from the chest, from the arm, this is one of the surest ways to build that up. Now, working on the other side of the body, we have the power row. Now, there's not a lot of real world scenarios where your pulling needs to be very explosive unless you're competing for like American Ninja Warrior. But for the general lifter, the general athlete, you're not going to do much better for posterior power than a power row. Full disclosure, I think you should be very, very comfortable with strict bent rows before you do this. You should be able to lay completely flat, pull the bar up to your sternum in a very controlled and stable manner with a good amount of weight before you really start to level up to this cheating type movement, because it's super easy to get wonky. It's super easy to get out of position. And when you do just start muscle fucking the weight and doing that little like short range of motion, like you're dropping your body on the bar to make it look like you did a row, that's not what we're doing here. We're actually interested in transferring power through your legs and hips up into your arms so that you can pull a lot of weight in a very explosive manner. When you do that, one of the main side effects is just a bigger, stronger upper back. I think cheating movements have a great developmental benefit generally, but it seems to be especially true for the back. Croc rows are a similar exercise where you're using a lot of momentum with a lot of weight for a lot of reps. When you do that on a power row, not only do you get that upper back development, do you learn to really snap into heavy weights, but you get the entire benefit of your midsection, your upper back, your hips being strong enough to brace and to handle that weight. And that is just a huge, huge asset to all of your other lifts. Your deadlifts, anything where you're bent over, there's few things that check so many boxes. As a thought experiment, take 60% of your max deadlift and think of what other scenario, what other exercise you would actually be explosively heaving into the weight while your entire spine is loaded with it. There aren't any that you can think of, and that's why this has very unique developmental ability. Now, the rest of these have more general athletic application, and that's because they rely on a big pop from the hips. That's the main joint, the cornerstone of all athletic movements. If you want to run, jump, sprint, anything that you do on the ground in real time is going to involve a powerful hip extension. So these are just different ways of conditioning that. Some of these will be lighter and faster. Some of these will be heavier and more overloaded, and developing all of those are extremely important for developing maximal power output. The first one we're going to start with is a faster, lighter, more athletic movement, and that is a hang snatch. Now, the reason I'm going with a snatch instead of a clean is because a clean can very much be muscled. In fact, a lot of athletes absolutely do that. It's crazy to think about, but you can actually kind of do a slow clean if you give pop and you're dropping under it and you're doing a lot of pulling with your arms. If we're going for pure power, we want to make sure the snap is as quick and explosive as possible. So because the hang snatch has to end up overhead, it's a longer pull. That means you have to commit to going faster at the start. You can't do a slow snatch. And this forces you to keep the weight light, which makes it a more power movement. I also like the hang because that puts you in an athletic position where you're starting in that quarter squat. So you have a very short amount of time to develop that power. That's kind of like the martial arts thing, like the 1-inch punch. You have very, very short distance to generate power, which is what you need to do in just about any athletic endeavor you can absolutely think of. If you go from the ground, you get the benefit of setting up, being able to use your legs to generate momentum. So the snatch is happening in the context of all of that momentum starting out. I also like it because it's low tech. You don't have to be a crazy athlete. You don't have to spend thousands of hours getting it down. You start with your hands wide, your elbows locked. You start out in like an RDL position where the bar is just below your kneecap and you just jump straight up. Give yourself a couple false starts to just jump and shrug, practice keeping the bar close to you, and eventually you'll be able to jump and just fall under it in a power position with your elbows locked. Now, one thing I like, it's a little bit of a twist on this, is using a barbell, but using one arm. So you got to use a barbell that has knurling in the middle, and balancing can be a little weird, but once you get it down, this gives you a lot more freedom. Now, you're not going to do this from a hang position, but as you jump into the bar, you have to use that arm quite a bit more, and you're really going to conceptualize much more clearly how everything connects. The legs into the hips, into the spine, into the arm. And when you sink it, you can handle a lot of weight like this. Now, one of the reasons I like this is because this carries over to throwing very well. In strongman, we have to do bag throws. And even though we do them with two arms, a one-arm snatch does a very good job of loading that arm in a very similar way as when I'm doing a two-arm throw. And I really like it for that reason. You got both legs attached to one arm, so the overload on the arm, it's just crazy. And it's a really fun warm-up. I'll do really short, quick sets before like a deadlift workout, and it'll get everything warmed up, and there's really good athletic transfer for that reason alone. Now in that vein, my next athletic explosive movement is a high pull. Now high pulls can exist on a spectrum. You can have somebody do kind of a cheating upright row. That's usually what I do. It's just a short, quick hip pop, and then I really focus on the follow through. I almost exclusively do these to help with bag tossing, and I find that it helps immensely, regardless of how strong my hips or back are or how snappy they are. If I'm getting to a heavy bag, I really feel it in my arms when I'm trying to follow through. And these heavy high pulls really make a big difference. Now you can move away from that and use less arms and focus more on the legs and hips, getting a really big snap and then following through with the arms. Olympic lifters do this to help with their clean, but any athlete can do this as a good way to build their upper body in an explosive capacity while getting just really, really ridiculous hip pop. In fact, an argument can be made that a clean is unnecessarily complex in an athletic program. Many athletes get it down just fine, but there's a lot of athletes that bastardize it. I actually worked with a baseball player some time ago who was having problems with his explosiveness, and he had a pretty good clean. And when he showed me the clean, it was obvious he was so worried about the weight that he wasn't extending. He was just dropping under it, which completely ruins the point. The only athletic carryover you get from a clean is on the jump, so you can eliminate everything else. So a high pull kind of does that. It takes away all the nonsense of needing to rack the bar, of timing how you get under it, of maintaining that flexibility, and it really is just an explosive heavy pop. And the weight you're going to be using is a bit heavier than the snatch, which is really important to work different loading parameters. Light and quick is important, but for maximum power development, you really got to have weight on there at some point. So a high pull is a good way to do that without making sure the weight gets so heavy that you're doing some sloppy, slow, ugly muscle clean type movement. Now number 6 is a power shrug, and this is in the same vein of the last couple exercises, but now we're just getting heavier. Now with a power shrug, I don't do a very short range of motion. I want transfer to general athleticism, but also my deadlift, because it's a really good opportunity to get that carryover. So I'll start right above my knee. And what you're going to do is set up, get as tight as you can, and from a dead stop, you're going to hammer into that weight, jump, get as tall as possible, and then launch your shoulders up to your ears. Now, this can be a very good developmental movement for your traps, absolutely. But if you want that hip power and if you want that lockout, you're going to take it back down to the pins under a little bit of control. You don't want to get banned from the gym because you fucked up the kabuki bar beyond repair. Take it down under control, reset, get tight, and launch into it again. Yeah, the traps are going to end up touching your ears before you know it, but your upper back, midsection, and hips are going to get very, very, very good at yeeting a shit ton of weight. That is your strongest mechanical position from a deadlift, that top part above the knee. So there's no reason that you should ever miss a lockout right there. Every time you deadlift, you should be exaggerating the lockout. And this is a great time to remind yourself of exactly how your glutes do that. By doing it explosively, starting in this strong position, it teaches that good habit. This is also going to carry over immensely to the other lighter movements we just did, because as this progresses, your potential ceiling for moving weight explosively is also going to increase. Now, lastly, this is one of my favorite crossover movements. It does so much for so many different people. I mean, bodybuilders are justified doing this. Powerlifters have been doing it for a long time. Olympic lifters, strongmen, any athlete. That is a box squat. Now, let me tell you why I love box squats. We already talked about with pin presses, how rate of force development at the start is so absolutely clutch for developing starting power. It's a different thing to start with momentum and then overload at the top, but starting disadvantage gets you to fire off the blocks quicker. So it makes sense why that would transfer to all athletic movement. So whether you're taking that first step off the blocks as a sprinter, or a lineman leaping off the line, or whether you're trying to get that heavy ass deadlift budged, that same power from a dead stop is going to come from movements like this. Now, the cool thing about box squats, immense amount of carryover to squatting, immense amount of fucking carryover to deadlifts. Like, if you were going to be a guy who tries to get your deadlift up without deadlifting, a kind of wide-ish box squat where you're really pushing your hips back a lot, come into a complete dead stop, and then leaping off the box, that has so much carryover to your starting power on deads. It's not even funny. I'm not really a fan of rocking. I found that when I got to the point where I could come up the way I came down and just pop off that box with a lot of speed, that provided the greatest carryover. That was a signal that I was strong and fast enough to actually see that physicality pay dividends to my other athletic abilities. Now, also, I like doing box squats from a bit higher position. Strength is position specific. You can do them lower if you want to specifically focus on those parts of your squat, but higher again is a more athletic position. That's where you jump, run, throw punches. And as you get comfortable with weight being explosive, you're going to see direct carryover to them. And in any situation where you need really strong top end strength, this is how you overload that, because you're always going to be limited by your weakest position. In a full range squat, that's like the bottom or the mid range. So you're never taxing that top end. So by going a little high or even egregiously high sometimes, you can really load the weight on. And that grants you the ability to develop a lot of strength there. So anything where you're doing just a short, quick hip hop, that is 100% going to benefit from this movement. And you have no idea how much room you have to improve that very easily until you do them. This isn't a replacement for squats, but done in conjunction with squats, that is a nasty 1-2 punch. I'm a big fan of box squats. Remember, keep it strict. Really let yourself relax at the bottom, and don't add weight to the bar so quickly that you can't leap. You're looking to find that pop and then the follow through to lock out. So if the weight starts getting so heavy that you're getting sloppy, you're getting really slow off the box, you went too heavy, let yourself get good at it before you really start chasing those poundages. And if you do that, it's going to be a game changer. So that's all I got for today, guys. These are my 7 barbell movements for pure power. These help me immensely. They help my clients immensely. Let me know what you think. Have you tried any of these? Have you had success with them? What else would you put on this list? Let me know in the comments below. Thanks so much for watching. Until next time, this is Bromley. I'll see you.